I'm Amanda.
And I'm Mike. And
this is Saturday Morning Cereal. What's up, everyone, and welcome to a bonus episode of Saturday Morning Cereal. I'm Amanda here with Mike, and today we are going to discuss The Last of Us video games. So The Last of Us, the first part, and Last of Us Part 2. Why are we doing this? Well, I just finished playing the video game, and I am not a video gaming person. And like I said earlier, if it's not Pokemon or like Animal Crossing or something like that, I rarely play video games. So this was fun. I had a great time overall. So Mike is actually going to be asking me questions here to discuss what I thought of the game versus the show, which I absolutely loved, by the way. The show I'm still not over it. I loved it so much, and I can't wait now for part 2.
So we are going to be discussing spoilers for the second game. So if you haven't played the second game and you don't want to be spoiled, please mute it now.
Yes.
So Amanda, where did we leave Ellie and Joel during the conclusion of the first game, and what happens to them on their journey in this game?
So as we know, the first game we leave off with Ellie being very cryptic of Joel here. Like, she has no idea to believe him or not when he says that, you know, she was one out of thousands of others that had immunity to the virus, and, you know, he was like, yeah, you didn't need to be there. So I just took you out of there, and we came back here. You're all good. Everything's fine. But Ellie is very suspicious about that. And she's just like, promise me that that's what happened. And Joel is like, I promise. So part 2, we jump, a few years?
Probably 5 years or so.
Yeah. And Ellie is living apart from Joel, but, you know, occasionally goes over to Joel's to hang out, whatever. And we find her, she's got like a whole new group of friends, and just kind of living her own life right now. I mean, obviously she's still under Joel's watch, but you know he's watching her, right? He just wants her to be near. And she just has this sheen, in the whole game, she just has this like sheen of depression and just like, whatever. I can't really explain her mood throughout this whole game, but it's like somber and no fucks are given, I think. But I think her relationship with Joel is really strained still. And throughout the game, we eventually find out why, and things come to light. Yeah.
And Joel, eventually the decision he made at the end of the last game catches up to him, because the daughter of the surgeon who was going to operate on Ellie and extract a cure from her finds Joel and seeks revenge on him, and takes a shotgun to his leg and takes a golf club to his head, and she kills Joel moments after he saves her life.
So let's backtrack here for a second. So I was thrown off by the fact that I'm playing this other character. Her name is Abby. And I'm like, who is this? Why is she so mad? Why is she so hateful? But I knew she was out for Joel, but why was she out for Joel? And it's just so weird in a good way, I guess. It depends how you look at it. The surgeon in the first game and the nurses in that room with Ellie, you know, Joel just like, you know, you just shoot them like you shoot any other person in the game. Like, bam, you're dead. Like, woohoo, you know? And you don't really feel remorse for it. You know, you just move on with your day. But in part 2, they kind of backtrack that. Like, these people you killed have families. And these families are hurting. So Joel done fucked up, and, you know, Abby's out to get revenge for her father and all the other Fireflies that he killed in the first game. So, but at first I was just really confused. I'm like, who is this girl? Why is she so, like, weird? She was and I call her. I'm like, she's built like a brick shit house, like what Tom Hiddleston describes Chris Hemsworth as. But yeah, very shocking for me. Oh my god. So we'll get back into that. So you want to ask me the next question, Mike?
So what was it like experiencing this new story through a game?
Oh
Because you had watched the
God.
show first, and halfway through the show, we started playing the first game,
Yeah.
and we finished the first game, we finished the first season of the show, and then we started this new story in part two. So what was it like experiencing such a heavy story through a video game?
Well, I mean, for you new viewers who don't know, I've mentioned this before. I am just so weak for a good angst story, especially like in horror movies too. But I love a good angst. I love a good like, oh my god, I'm stressed because these two characters are going through this situation, and so this story was right up my alley. And to tell you the truth, I wanted to play these games for the story. Mike set me on very, very easy level, which I found out after playing the first game. I was like, okay. But I'm not the best at all with shooting. So, or just balancing in general in a video game. So yeah, I'm not the best at all, but I did it for the story, and there were just so many shocking moments in this. And just Joel getting killed was one of the first things that I threw my hands up in the air. I was like pacing for a little bit. I mean, I don't mean to sound over dramatic, but that's what happened. I was so distraught when she killed Joel. It was horrible.
So do you think that was a risk that paid off creatively for the story of the game, or do you think it didn't work?
I think in the long run it worked. While and this was one thing I was talking to my brother about, and we'll probably touch more on this later on in this episode here, but there is a lot of hate in this story, and it gets overwhelming with all the negative hate and just wanting to kill each other in cold blood. And that it makes sense for Joel to get killed because there's a vicious cycle going on in this story. And it starts with, what would you say?
Sarah.
Obviously Sarah, but just Tommy just keeps, or not Tommy, I'm sorry, Joel keeps wanting some type of revenge for Sarah, and then he finds comfort in Ellie because she reminds him of Sarah. But that cycle just keeps on going. And so when Joel dies, that sparks a huge flame in Ellie and Tommy for wanting revenge for Joel. And the interesting take is then you play a really big chunk of the game in Abby's point of view. And she's full of hate and revenge as well. So it leads to this really crazy finale of Ellie and Abby, and you just see like sheer hate out, just wanting to brutally murder each other. But that cycle does get stopped, so we'll probably touch more here in a little bit on that.
Well, I was listening to the Last of Us podcast for the series, and the creators of the show said that the first season was about love. And I feel like the second game is about hate.
Yeah.
Like, I feel it's just like, the first game is, what would you do for love? And the second game is, what would you do in the name of hate? And it is the things that they ask in that game, ask of hate in this game are unmatched.
Yeah.
It's just so heavy.
It's exhausting. There was one night I was playing, and I had to literally force myself to stop playing because I had to go to bed because I had work the next day. I had such a hard time like settling down and going to sleep. And I don't know why. I still can't put my finger on why, but that game just leaves you like reeling. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a heavy story, and then playing as the character who does some of these things,
yeah,
really plays a part in your psyche as kind of like empathizing what the character does in your mind because you're playing as them.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
So Amanda, what was it like as playing both the protagonist and antagonist of this game? I mean, I would go as far to say is that Abby and Ellie are both protagonists, and they both have their own three plot story in the game. So I think they're both protagonists, but would you describe Abby as an antagonist, anti-hero?
There's definitely two separate stories in one video game that all intertwine with each other at the end. And let me elaborate on that. So again, playing as Abby right at the beginning, I'm like, who is this? Why? Like, I didn't care about her at all. She kills Joel, and I'm like, you bitch. Like, how dare you? I was so mad. And Mike, you were saying, well, yeah, you're going to be playing more as her later on in the game. And I'm like, I don't want to. She's horrible. Like, no, ew. And then, you have this whole thing with Ellie. You go and you start your looking for Abby. And then we actually get Dina and then Jessie, who are Ellie's friends. And I love Jessie and Dina. They're just two sidekicks you want to have on your side. And Ellie's so lucky. And then, Dina and Ellie, they fall in love. And it's so great because Ellie has like a shred of light in Dina. Especially now that Joel's dead. So, because Tommy just turns into like a crazed lunatic wanting revenge for Joel. And I mean, rightly so, because that was his brother. But Dina is just this little light that Ellie has. So that's great. I like that. And, you're playing as Ellie, Dina, Jessie, and then you're killing all these guards, and they're called the werewolves, right?
The wolves.
The wolves.
The Washington Liberation Front?
Yeah. So Abby and her friends, they're part of the wolves. So that in Seattle. So that's what Ellie is doing. She's in Seattle, and she's hunting Abby. This is the whole first part of the game. And you're killing all these wolf soldiers and their dogs, and you don't care about anything other than getting to the next level of sorts, getting closer to finding Abby. And I mean, for me, killing those dogs was the worst part in that whole game. I'm blowing up humans with these bombs and these bomb arrows, having a great time. Oh my god. But when it came to the dogs, I was like, oh my god, I'm such a bad person. That's terrible to say. But I digress. And so you don't really care about any of these characters that you're just, slaughtering. And, so you eventually get to this part where you start playing as Abby. Because Abby comes to Ellie. And, Dina is in danger, and Abby has Ellie and Tommy at gunpoint, whatever. Then the, game kind of backtracks, I guess, into Abby's backstory. So you play as Abby, and you see these people that you killed as Ellie, a big part of Abby's life. And the dog, Alice. Oh, I love Alice. And I was heartbroken because I'm like, oh my god, I killed her. Like in the first part of this game. Same with Meg. Same with, is it Owen?
Owen and Mel.
Mel, sorry. Mel and Owen. There's so many characters. Oh my god. Yeah, it's just, oh my god. So I'm playing as Abby. I'm like, I killed all these guys. Oh my god. Because the story makes you get attached to these characters so much. And, they start dropping like flies, and you see both sides of the story, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, who's the good guy here? It's so crazy. So I think it was a clever thing how they had us play as Ellie, and then they had us play as Abby, because we got a clear understanding of the motive. We love the characters, and then you understand what hate can do to a person on both accounts. Sorry, that was long, but
it was a great response.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Good. I've been talking about it just randomly throughout the week.
So are Ellie and Abby, are they right to seek vengeance against one another, or is this something that they should have both let go of?
I think for me, it's opposite here because Ellie is doing something I feel impulsively. Like, Abby has been on this case for years, wanting revenge for her father and wanting to kill Joel. Like, she's had a plan set for years. And Ellie, she's just like obsessed with the fact that, and I don't think Ellie really understood the consequences of all of this either, of just going out and Dina followed her, and we later learned Dina is pregnant because Jesse and Dina used to be together, and Dina is pregnant with Jesse's kid. So, for me, that was an unnecessary risk to put Dina in, but, Dina is loyal to Ellie, and, they go. And I just think Ellie, like, in Ellie's point, it was just, she should have thought about it first before just going. But then again, Joel was her dad, pretty much, and Abby, that was her dad. And, I love my dad, and I would probably try to seek revenge for my dad, too. So, yeah, they both had good reasons to go after each other, of course.
I think that when Abby and Ellie originally confronted each other, and Abby kind of beat Dina into a pulp and killed Jesse and shot Tommy in the face and had spared Ellie, I feel like they should have let it go. Ellie should have let it go there, because at that point, Ellie and Dina were together, and Tommy and his wife were together, and little JJ was born, and they had a farm and little goats and sheep and everything. I feel like that should have been her happy ending. And then Tommy and Ellie kind of just spiral right back into the hate cycle, and Ellie goes after her. But I feel like that does end up working in Abby's favor, because Abby, in seeking revenge against Ellie, kind of ostracizes herself from the wolves, and she meets her friend Len, who is a transgender archer from this like cult group called the Seraphites, and she ends up going after the Fireflies again and getting captured, and it's Ellie who saves her. And it's Ellie who, despite having a struggle against her again, decides to just let her go. So, I mean, things worked out more so for Abby than Ellie, but both characters just lost so much.
I just want to shout out, though, to this, what's the makers? Naughty Dog, for taking the plunge and really bringing representation into these video games for the LGBTQ plus community. And just some of the struggles, especially that Len faces in this game, I really admired their take on that and the struggles Len has gone through as a transgender. So that'll be really nice to see in the show, too. I can't wait. I can't wait to see these characters in the show. All of them.
So what are the consequences of each character's actions taking revenge in this game? What does each character lose? And why does it hurt so much? Amanda?
They lose the people that are most important to them. I mean, yeah, they both lost their dads at the beginning, but in the whole revenge plot against each other, they lose the people that they love the most. And, Abby and Owen, she loses Owen, she loses her friends, she loses her title as like this rough and tough gal. I don't know if she's a wolf leader per se, but she is well respected in the wolves. And her muscles. I was joking. I'm like, her muscles are her one true love. But she loses all that. All the stuff she worked so hard for. And then same with Ellie. She had this amazing relationship once things settled out a little bit with Dina. Dina had the baby. They were living together in a house, and they were just in this like domesticated bliss. And they had goats too, which I thought was really, it was so, oh my God. Because that was Joel's dream, was to live on a goat farm. Or was it goats or lambs?
It was sheep.
Sheep! Oh my god.
And what you're thinking of is actually something they put in the first season of the show, knowing it would be referenced in the second season based on the game.
Oh, okay.
So you're kind of commingling them together. But
yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Yeah, see, details like this are starting to fade already, which is crazy. But, yeah, okay, so I did not know that was not in the first game, but it was something they put in the show. That's interesting.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, okay, there we go. But I like that. So, but ultimately, because Ellie was not done with Abby, she pursues more revenge on Abby and eventually loses Dina because Dina had enough of the unnecessary risks and did not want to put herself or her baby in jeopardy.
Yeah, going on about what Abby lost. When you find Abby at the end of the game, she's endured months of, like, torture. And she's lost all of her muscle mass, and her hair's been shaven, and she's lost, a few of the things that make her special. She's lost her bag of weapons that she loves. She's lost her hair. She's lost her muscles. And throughout the game, Ellie's been learning guitar, and Joel taught her guitar, and at the end of the game during the fight, she gets her fingers bitten off.
Oh, that part was awful.
And then you sit down as Ellie, and you try to play the guitar, and you can't because you're missing fingers. You can't hit the riffs and the chords. And Tommy was so agile and so fast, and he was such a great sharpshooter.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the game, he gets shot through the eye. He loses his eye.
Mm-hmm.
He probably loses part of his brain. He's an agitated old man, and now he's got this big limp from where Lev shot him with an arrow. So all these characters, in seeking revenge, just lost everything that made them who they are.
Yeah, Tommy's wife even left him too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I totally forgot about the fingers part because it was so awful. I blocked it out of my memory.
So, what did you think of the Seraphirites in the game? And do you think that they're a group of people that could exist in our world now or possibly during the end of the world?
They're horrible. They're so scary. Like, just the way they treated Len and his sister, like, oh my god. No, absolutely. I mean, they would absolutely thrive in this world right now. And I don't want to get political, but I think a certain political party would take to them. As far as them, like, existing at the end of the world, I think if it's the end of the world, it's every man for himself. And we definitely saw that with the pandemic. Like, people just got so, like, me. You know, it's all about me. I don't need to wear a mask because whatever, you know. I could just definitely see, like, an extremist group forming at the end of the world to get what they want. So, yeah, I think so. And that's a really scary thought.
I think it was crazy how they had kind of like their own prophet. Like, you know, most cults are just about like a leader. But like these people had like a god, like a prophet. And they were worshiping her. And I think she dies forever. She dies.
Yeah.
And we don't know how or when. But then they just keep on going. And they kind of just turn humanity's progress backwards. Because they start wearing all these robes. They live in these cabins. They live on an island. They don't use any like guns excessively or electricity. Like they just go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And they start doing like real sexist shit.
Yeah.
Like you know, you can either be a hunter, or if you're a woman, you have to marry off to a man, and it's ridiculous how backwards they are. And it's why it was so interesting to put Lev into that situation and have him kind of just rebel against everything that holds that group apart, which is kind of like their gender roles, which is, you know, men do this, women do that, and how he just split it apart. He shaved his head. Wow.
Yeah.
So, Amanda, what was the biggest WTF moment in the game for you?
It's a tie between the Abby and Owen sex scene and the Rat King. That damn Rat King.
Tell us what was going through your mind when you encountered the Rat King.
I did not know that thing was coming. I'm trying to get out of that van, and all of a sudden, this, like, mash of like people and mushrooms are just like at me, and I couldn't escape it, and I threw the video game controller to you to beat it for me
Yeah, you did.
because I
So,
would have been screwed.
so do you think that the Rat King was something that was like bound to happen? Do you think that there's more of them out there, or do you think that was just a once in a million situation there?
I think there's maybe a few more out there, especially with the hospitals that have the first infected in them. You and I, we discussed how that it's ground zero. And this particular hospital locked all these infected people in one room, and that's how it became the Rat King. Who's to say there's not one or two more around the country in a hospital looming, you know? Or there may be something worse out there than the Rat King.
Yeah, the Rat King probably looked to be what about like a dozen people.
Yeah, it was gross. It was so that whole entire level floor. I don't know what you would call it, but it was gross. There was so much blood. There was so much blood in the fungus. And there was so much fungus and brains and just and the thing about like the scenery in this game. I mean, first of all, gorgeous. Like the buildings in Seattle looked just like like real life. I mean, it was crazy. I love the post-apocalyptic look of this whole entire what do you call it, video game sequence. Like I love it. But you go into these buildings and there's these like big pockets of fungus like plastered to the wall, and when like a big bloater or a the
Stalker?
that or like
Shambler?
the shamblers, yeah, when they're coming because there's so much of it in one spot. You're like, oh god, there's gonna be one coming, but it's gross and it's like it's mushroom, but it's human flesh also. Ugh, but it's clever at the same time.
So, what shocked you most about the Owen and Abby moment in this game? Did you expect to see as much as you did, or did you not expect the two characters to to do that at that point in the story? Like, what was so shocking about it?
I mean, I was expecting them to have some sort of emotional sexual release, but not that in our face about it. I was not prepared for that. I'm like, whoa, this happens in video games too? Well, and like, yeah, with Abby, I was like, okay, nope. I mean, Owen was hot, but Abby, no.
To each their own.
I guess.
So, did you enjoy playing through this game as much as the first one?
I look at it as two different things. I enjoyed the first game because I was just so in the story. And there was humor, and there was heart, and there was love. I mean, it had everything in it, and as well as scary monsters and like a horror element to it. So I absolutely loved playing the first game, and I was sad when I was done playing it. But then I was excited because there was more story in part 2 to tell. But part 2, I was, like I said earlier, so emotionally drained, especially when I was done with the game. I was like, I think I sat in silence for like a solid 10 minutes because I was taking it all in. I'm like, that was so much. Like, it's hard to explain. Because when I was playing the second part, it was hard for me to put it down because I really wanted to know what was going to happen next. And all the scenes were so long and so draining in this game. But it's not a bad thing. It was just part of the story.
Yeah, sometimes movies you watch are fun, and sometimes movies you watch to feel something deeply and to have a out of body experience with an emotion. And not every time you sit down and you watch a movie, you're gonna pick to watch Schindler's List. But when you watch Schindler's List or you watch a heavy movie, you feel things. And this is one of those situations where it's not a game I would find myself playing just for fun and experiencing that story again and again and again. But when you play it, you feel it, and it's deep.
Oh yeah.
So, what was the biggest improvement from the first game for you, Amanda? Was it the gameplay, the stealth controls, the secondary character, the new weapons, the new enemies, the bigger sets, the longer story? What was the big improvement for you in this game?
Well, I mean, the first game was gorgeous too, but the second game, just the scenery was so great. The artwork in this game, the monsters, the infected, the shamblers, that was a good. And even as scared as I was, the Rat King was pretty good as well. And so I think the monsters for me were the best part of the game, just because they were scary. I really hate the stalkers because they're invisible pretty much. And then all of a sudden they're in your face. Or sometimes you can see them peeking around the corner, like their little flappy thing on their head is like looking at you, and you're like, oh god, And so I like the horror element of this game. Just the monsters. They really did up the ante on that, and just like I said earlier, the interior design of the buildings they were really great. I felt like I was in a building in real life a lot. Yeah. And then the character models were really good. I thought they were good in the first game, but this, you could see Abby. You could see her in real life, and you were showing me these characters are based off of real people.
Yeah, I know for certain characters like Joel and like Abby, they have a different face model. Well, they have a different voice actor than they do a face model, but I think Ellie is based off of Ashley Johnson exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
And in this game, they got to use a lot of improvements that the film industry had done and a lot of improvements that other game companies had done. And they got to use motion capture on the face finally. Because in the first game, all of the acting on the face was hand animated by animators. And in this game, it's pure motion capture. So it really has that connection with you.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the actress that plays Dina. That's her.
Yeah, it's her. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully she gets to play in the show. That'd be great.
Yeah, we actually remember we saw Dina during season 1. Ellie was in the Jackson rec hall, and she was eating fruit, and there was a little girl spying on her.
Yeah.
And that's who possibly it was. So they built those sets knowing that they would come back to them in part 2.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
So Amanda, now that you've experienced part 1 and part 2, do you want a third game? And if you want one, what do you want to see out of it?
I do want a third game. I don't know what I want to see out of it yet. I know you asked me this right after I played that game. I do want a third game. I want to see Ellie find out the 100% truth and make it right. I want to see her try to take her immunity and do something about it. Maybe, try to put herself out there and say, I can help. But I don't know how that could happen. I don't know. And I mean, these stories love a good angst to them. So I don't know what an angsty moment would be. Yeah, I have no idea what I want it to be yet, but I want to see more Ellie, definitely. I want to see more, might want to see a little more Abby too.
I think it would be cool to have Abby and Ellie be in different parts of the country, and for Abby to find the Fireflies and become a doctor among them, like her dad was, and a medic. And she's studying to be a doctor, and she's learning to understand immunology, and she discovers, hey, maybe I could find Ellie, and we could go off and find a cure for this together somehow. And then you go out and you look for Ellie, and then Ellie has something going on where she doesn't want to die yet and give herself up to the cure because maybe Dina's in danger, or JJ's missing, or Tommy's gone, and she has to recruit Abby to help her with her mission before she agrees to go under the knife. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good one.
That's just me. These game developers are master storytellers, and they're just gonna get you with the unexpected. So I love to. I can't wait for a third game.
Yeah.
So what story did you see in this game, or what little detail did you see that you would like to see extra attention paid to on the show?
Definitely the Rat King, the whole hospital part. I want to see a backstory to that. I want to see what exactly happened and how this Rat King formed. I'm not over the Rat King, y'all. But no, I think it would be a really interesting take because, at the first, or season 1 for the first game, we got that opening sequence of how the disease formed and like measures to take. So they could definitely do that. Like give us a little brief history of the hospital and the patients there and how this Rat King formed.
Yeah, I mean, a hospital story sounds wonderful, and then every time you go into a new environment in this game, there's kind of like little notes you can find.
Oh yeah.
And one of the more interesting ones was on the boat, and you find out this guy was on the boat basically like killing people with a crossbow. So I don't know if they could streamline that into the season, but if they could do like, I don't know, like an hour-long special after the second season comes out, and it doesn't have to have any of the other characters in it, but it's just about like these little offshoots, stories that happen, and you could kind of tie them all together. And you could say, oh, well, this one's about the hospital that Abby goes to, or this one's about the boat, or this one's about the bank that Ellie gets her shotgun from. Like, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
So, just so it doesn't, like, slow down the production of the original show, but it's just kind of like a sub-story that you could go to and visit. That would be neat.
We definitely need more monster fungus in the next season. There wasn't enough of that.
Yeah, it was overwhelming in this game how many like runners and clickers and shamblers and stalkers and bloaters and rat kings were. And then we got all these different new enemies too. We got the wolves, who were a lot like hunters from the first game. And then we had the Sapphirites, which were a unique enemy. And then we even had dogs and all sorts of great enemies.
Yeah.
So, do you think the show is going to diverge from the story presented in this game? And do you think that these showrunners are looking at Pedro Pascal and going, oh no, we can't kill this guy. He's the star of our show, and he's a big draw to us, and he's like the most popular actor at the moment. Do you think there's any divergence coming in the second season?
Well, they have a lot of flashbacks in this Part 2 game with Joel and Ellie, and how Joel just helps Ellie do whatever. I mean, they go to an aquarium, or was it a museum? I think it was a museum. Yeah.
There's an aquarium and a museum.
Yeah, there's both. But Joel takes her to a museum. This was a flashback for her birthday or something special. And because Ellie loves space, and Joel found this museum, and it had a space exhibit. And so that was a really nice, tender moment between those two. And I don't know, because like then you got the Abby story. So they could do it one of two ways. They could give us the story as is, as it flows in the game, or they can start out with the flashbacks and then gradually give us present day Ellie and then proceed with the storyline. One thing they did do in season 1 was they gave these other characters like Bill a big chunky meaty backstory. So I guess the sky's the limit for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna do the dirty deed to Joel, and I don't think they're gonna diverge too much from it. I think they're just gonna deepen it as much as they can, and they're probably gonna do, I don't know, probably at least 2 or 3 seasons on this story.
Yeah, they're gonna have to.
So, what concerns do you have now knowing the story and now knowing what is going to be asked of, like, the directors and the crew and the cast going into this second story?
I just hope it's not slow. Because there were some slow moments in the game, and I just hope the show doesn't give us too much back and forthness. I'm not a big fan of a ton of flashbacks in a movie. Like once, like 30 minutes of present day, and then maybe like 25 minutes of like 1905, and then back to present day. I'm not a big fan of stuff like that. Just my brain doesn't function as good with that. So I'm hoping that they don't do too much of that. and they can somehow come up with a creative structure of incorporating these flashbacks into like a more broad, like I said, putting the flashbacks of Ellie and Joel at the beginning of the show, and then wrapping up the whole Ellie part, and then giving us Abby perhaps in a new season, and then it all come into fruition at the end of that season, or even another, like a season 4. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that they could structure specific episodes around Ellie and then other episodes around Abby.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the flashback should be peppered in to the show, and I think because there's so much information given in these flashbacks, and if you were to do them back to back, I feel like it would be really exposition heavy. And I feel like in the game they gave you the flashbacks at a peak emotional moment where you could relate it to what was currently happening. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to see that. So do you think Bella Ramsey is going to be able to portray Bella? Bella Ramsey is going to be able to portray Ellie as she is in this game.
I don't know, honestly. I loved Bella Ramsey in the first season. I follow her on Instagram. She is so adorable. And she was a great Ellie in season 1. But there are so many things in the second game I cannot see this little girl doing. There's a lot of mature themes to it. Now, I should be saying little girl. She's like 19, right?
Yeah, she's 19. They're 19 or 20, I think.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think like a lot of the cast members have a baby face to them. She's definitely a baby face. I think she can pull it off, though. I'm not gonna judge her yet, you know, because her performance was fantastic in season 1. Can I see her doing some of the stuff that Ellie does in season 2? Not really, but I'm not gonna discredit her because she hasn't done it yet. We haven't seen her do it, so who am I to say anything?
And there's lots of great things they can do to help age her up. Like they can get her some muscle mass.
Yeah.
And they can cut her hair differently. They can put some makeup on her.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some apple boxes for her so she's a little bit taller.
Yeah.
So things can be done, and Bella Ramsey is a professional, and I think she was kind of really the one Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie in the game, was rooting for to get the part.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm open to them to making Ellie more mature, and if they don't have to skip ahead in time as much to
Mm-hmm.
get her to be 19, if they want to make an Ellie story where she's 16 instead, because she's 14 in the first season. So if she were 16 or 17 and they don't want to play Ellie as 19, they can do that.
Okay. Yeah. That's something too. Yeah. Oh God, and with that was a lot. And that's what part 2 is all about. It's just a lot. But I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. Let us know if you played through part 2 and what you thought. And as always, I hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you next time.